People who look at the X-rayed baggage in airports. What's the most disturbing thing you found? Story 1. Lots of loaded firearms. Weapons, really. You'd be amazed at how many people try to fly with guns and use the excuse, I didn't know I had one in my bag. Tasers, batons, switchblades, you name it. Runner-up, 3 sculpted rubber kitties / lower torsos with the liquid still on them in Ziploc bags. The guy was bringing his girlfriends to Hawaii, I guess, and didn't feel like cleaning them. Third place is a bag full of cockroaches skittering among regular clothes with crumbs everywhere. The guy kept them as pets. So, for that second one, real quick, did this guy forget that they check bags at the airport? Has he never been before? Because to me it's either that or he wanted someone to find them. We now have a Discord. Check out the server in the link in the description. Story 2. Not the airport, but coming onto a military base overseas. Was running the X-ray machine at the walk-in gate. Seen a very tiny chick come in wearing a grossly oversized backpack, and she had an odd expression on her face like she was uncomfortable. So naturally, I chose her as my random bag check for the group. Ran the bag through the X-ray machine, and let me tell you, she had this giant backpack stuffed as tightly as she could, with what only looked like nothing but huge fake dongs. I have never seen a woman turn as red as fast as this woman did. Story 3. Didn't even need an X-ray. It was in plain sight. Working a baggage pier in the sorter, coworker drops off an odd-sized item. Looked like a regular folding table at first in one of our clear plastic bags. Coworker tells me it is an S&M table. Being the new guy, I thought that he was just messing with me, but then I looked closer. It was a folding table, but on one side was a T-shaped item labeled the jackhammer down on the side. On the other side of the table were some silver handcuffs. So, yeah, it was an S&M table. It was going to Ohio. Story 4. I worked in left luggage / lost property in an airport, and we found some, weird things. We had to take all the bags over to be scanned if they were found or handed in to us. People had a month to call us or collect it. Otherwise, it was donated to charity or disposed of. Here are some things I can remember. Samurai swords, a backpack full of live crabs, a suitcase filled entirely of empty Monster Energy cans, I'm talking maybe 30 cans, a bag of reborn baby dolls, a lot of moldy food, a lot of large knives, weird-looking adult toys, people's ashes. Like, seriously, how do you carry the ashes of your loved one and leave the bag in the airport? I used to love the days where we got to sort through the out-of-date stuff, because we'd get to see who found the weirdest thing. Sometimes you'd come across a bag that just didn't make sense. Like, it had a towel, underwear, and then a completely random item that you wouldn't travel with. The crap people try to get on a plane with is absolutely crazy. We had a lot of campers and explorers who tried to use that as an excuse to take their machetes on board with them. Story 5. Not really weird, but a guy came through with legit gold bars. He was Asian and mentioned that they'd been in his family for a very long time. They were completely black on the X-ray, and he asked for a private screening. I was the one who checked out the bag. I don't remember how much they were, but it was kinda cool since I'd never seen real solid gold bars before. In the 4 years I was TSA, I never once found a gun. I probably wasn't a very good agent. Story 6. I got stopped in Alaska one time for something similar. They flagged my bag, think a serious hiking backpack, and pulled me aside to a table. The lady starts going through my bag, taking forever because it's jammed full of stuff. Eventually, I said, is there something in particular I can help you find? And she says, it looks like there's a bunch of rocks in here. I told her where to go, and she pulled out one of these several large chunks of very nicely formed quartz crystals that I hammered out of a boulder the week before. Her eyes went wide as saucers, and she immediately stuffed the crystals back into my bag and said, have a nice day. To this day, I'm convinced she thought I was transporting a fortune in diamonds. Story 7. My mother was flying to visit my sister in another state. TSA took my mom's bag out of the X-ray machine. He was shaking as he opened my mother's bag. I thought he was going to pass out. The agent asked her if she knew there were chopped up baby parts in her luggage. My mother smiled sweetly and said, yes. Why do you ask? An alarm must have been set off because there were now a dozen airport police surrounding her and looking at the fleshy limbs. At the time, she was making life-sized, anatomically correct baby dolls. My sister was going to help her assemble them. TSA was not amused. Story 8. I'll speak on behalf of my screener. My bag got dug through at TSA. This was not in secondary screening, it was in a full view of all passengers waiting for their bags and shoes to roll out on the machine. Screener had pulled out one of 2 adult-sized diapers covered with cute nursery prints. I'll never forget the look on her face as the gears in her head turned to try and process what in the hell she was looking at. She unfolded it in view of every passenger and then folded it back up and put it in my bag, sending me away. The lady next to me looked really surprised too. She had nothing to watch but the screener digging through my bag while she waited for her crap being scanned. What a crap show that was. Story 9. I worked for TSA, both on the checkpoint and in checked baggage. I have stories upon stories, ranging from a 5-gallon bucket filled with live eels, a small rocket engine filled with kerosene, a lady claiming she had a medical need for a giant bottle of Drano, and finding fentanyl concealed in a bag. Much more, but I don't have the time to write it out right now. The absolute scariest one I encountered was a huge firework mortar, which is scary if you know how to interpret images. My heart fell into my gut and I about puked. Even slamming the brakes on the scanner, I struggled to find my voice to call over the radio. I felt this way every time I found something of such a large potential threat. In my 2-year stint with TSA, I personally found 8 loaded handguns and 1 disassembled rifle hidden in hairstyling tools. I'm happy to be out of there now. I took my position seriously, so it was very stressful to constantly bear that responsibility. Like, what if I hadn't found that rifle? His wife had ammunition found in her bag. A lot of the time, I'm like, TSA is such a hassle, it's just such an overreaction to one event in history. But then I read about stuff like this and I'm like, okay, maybe it has some uses. I'm glad OP took their job seriously, at the very least. It sounds like they potentially kept some people safe. Story 10. Not exactly the question you asked, but funny nonetheless. I was flying from Albany, New York to Tennessee, and I always have knives and whatever on me, and I simply forget I have them. So when they went to search my pocketbook because their radar went off, I was thinking, oh, whoops, I forgot a knife. The guy is searching like he's looking for a grain of sand, and I'm suddenly panicking, wondering if I maybe have something illegal. Turns out I had one of those credit card knives. It's like a metal credit card shaped thing with a knifed edge. I said, kudos for finding that, man. It was buried in my wallet and I totally forgot about it. No problem, just got rid of it. The kicker is this. I'm on the plane and I go into my pocketbook to get something, and my 4-inch pocket knife is sitting right there. I was scared out of my mind that I'd get arrested. The whole time I'm scared of jail while simultaneously wondering how he found my credit card knife deep in my wallet, but missed the clear as day pocket knife. I kept my pocketbook closed for the rest of the flight. Similarly, I went to a courthouse and they said to empty the pocketbook of anything weird / could be harmful. Being the weirdo prepper that I am, began unloading pepper spray, knife, mini vodka bottles. When the security guy laughed at me, I told him not to come crying to me when the zombie apocalypse happens. Story 11. Finding adult toys was always a bit of a yuck, especially if nasty. Owners varied from young adults to old folks. I don't care what consenting adults do, I still don't like handling their toys though. Had a bleeding deer head once. Was not allowed into the x-ray. Nothing like having your gloves start melting while searching a bag. Found vials of DNA stripper in a bag once. Nice big warnings, do not inhale, do not get on skin, will cause cancer, may cause death. Airline loved having to find a disposal company that would come get that stuff. And rotten meat on occasion. I'm noticing a theme with the rotting meat thing. Why is this so common? Why are people trying to travel with it? What's going on? Story 12. In BC here, a guy went hunting, decided to kill a mountain lion, dismembered it, and stuffed it into 2 coolers. One cooler has the head that he brought on for carry-on, where I was, and he checked the body under the plane. At first, I had no idea what it was when it showed up on screen. It honestly looked like a turkey, but nope. I was about to send it for a search when the guy leaned over and told me what it was. No ice, wasn't frozen, just the head decomposing. Apparently it's good meat, according to him. It was cool and disturbing at the same time. I could see the brain, its eyes, its bones. It was, yeah. Story 13. Not so much disturbing, but entertaining. I was coming back from a trip to China. I had purchased an amethyst geode, a big one, like 80 pounds. I couldn't say no to the price. I teach geosciences, so it was both pretty and useful. I didn't trust it to be shipped or checked, so I just had it on my carry-on, in a piece of luggage purchased just for it. It went through scanning. The agent running the machine laughed nervously and turned the screen so I could see it. It looked like a mortar shell, like a big, bullet-shaped artillery projectile. Before opening my bag, she asked me if I wanted to say anything. I explained, we chuckled, and she confiscated the duct tape I used to reinforce the bag and sent me on my merry way. Story 14. Not a security agent. However, my mom's friend's husband was going on a fishing trip with some friends. On the way out, he realized he needed a cooler for the fish. He grabbed the first one he found in the garage and continued to the airport. When he was in line for security, he realized his wife had taken a 12-inch knife in the cooler the day before for watermelon, but had not removed it. Got through security okay after they confiscated the knife. When he returned and told the incident to his wife, she said, "There goes my good knife." Story 15. I've worked at an airport for a total of 1 year. After 6 months, I passed my training for X-ray and other set areas. I've got 2 stories. 1. Asian guy walks up with a hockey bag. Looks heavy and full. Going through the scanner, it separates metals by color. We couldn't make out what the hell was inside. Looked like a giant complex puzzle. So we open it and holy crap, the bag was filled to the top with dog food. No idea. Not in bags, just like 100 pounds of dry dog food. Before I get on to my next story, some context. I was employed a 1.5 years ago, and cannabis, before legalization here in Canada, was absolutely fine to bring across. As long as it wasn't like pounds of it. Ounces were absolutely fine because it was no threat to the passengers. This may differ from other airports, but this specific one, it was fine. 2. Asian family. Looks to be a father, mother, and 2 teenagers. They bring in what looks like an expensive luggage case. Again, we can see some plastic, but in the middle we had no idea what it was, so we bring it through and open it. Before I end this story, this whole family was dead silent. Not a peep other than, yes, that's my bag. Inside was a dead fetus. I kid you not. Now, we assumed they were traveling back and hoped to maybe have a proper funeral. After seeing this, we passed it on to the manager, who just had a small talk with the people and let them go. The only information we got from him was he also believed that they were bringing it back home. It also did look like the man had paperwork of some kind. I never seen it. Those were the 2 weirdest ones I ever had. Is it weird that I'm actually more weirded out by the first story than the second? That much dog food in a big hockey bag is weird. Also, that bit in the middle, I don't know what context that was supposed to provide, but I guess it's just another mini story? I don't know. Story 16. I work at a smaller airport, but have been doing it for years, and there are a few weird things I've seen. The 3rd weirdest I've seen is, one time a dense organic came up on the X-ray, and when we went and checked it, it turned out to be a fake dragon dong, and it was a guy traveling. Things got awkward quickly. The 2nd weirdest thing I've seen is, one time an image came up of a human head and right arm of a human as well. The person on load position forgot to mention that human remains were coming through, and while we would normally stop that, this was for biological research. The kicker was that the brain was still in the head. And the weirdest thing I've seen, bar none. One time, a relatively young lady came through with a baby, and in her purse, her only carry-on, she had an oversized liquid with a big orange lump attached. Dense organic is dark orange. And we thought it was for the baby. Maybe food and wipes, most likely. And it turned out that she only had these 2 items for a 6-hour flight. And they turned out to be a bottle of vodka and a Bible. That was all she had for her and the baby, nothing else. No gum, no wallet, no lip chap, no keys, no change, nothing. Those were 3 weird items to have. Story 17. Not airport security, but I feel like this story kinda fits. Back in my misspent youth, like 20 years ago, I had some, questionable friends. One, Vinny, was a crazy punk rock junkie. He had a court date for some small charge. He was forever missing court, getting a warrant, going to jail. So a few of us volunteered to escort Vinny to court. We asked him a dozen times, "You don't have anything illegal on you, right?" He said, "Of course not." We get to the courthouse, line up for the metal detectors, Vinny is in front. He gets to where you empty your pockets into the trays, change, keys, etc. Vinny proceeds to pull handfuls of dirty syringes out of his pockets. And he just puts them on the trays like they're his keys. We just had time to see the horrified look on the guard's face before we ran out and ditched Vinny. He spent a month in jail for that. Story 18. A few years ago, my friends were flying to go skiing, and this was in Russia where all baggage gets checked right at the entrance of the airport. So back then, the vaping thing was quite new, and not many people knew what it was. One of the girls had packed her vape, that's what it's called, right? In the luggage, and it supposedly looked like a grenade to the person looking at the x-rays. Of course, my friends didn't know this then, so they saw the following picture. As they go through the metal detectors, the woman looks at the screen, stops the line, picks up her radio, and says something along the lines of, "Code 6, entrance 3. Within seconds, the place was swarming with heavily armed police, who stopped everyone and opened the bags. They just stood there holding the vape, having absolutely no clue what it was. Then they made the girl use it to prove it's not a weapon. And luckily it all ended well, and they were let through after a few minutes. Story 19. Not a security screener, but I used to be a geological survey pilot. Normally, since we're a small aircraft and don't carry passengers, we use the general aviation part of airports that don't require going through security. But we were doing a job in Ireland, and apparently they don't have much general aviation there and weren't sure what to do with us. So every time we went out to the plane, we had to go through security, run our bags through x-ray, take our shoes off, etc., just like a regular passenger. Now, the airplane has a crash axe, which is usually carried on board, but we'd removed it for reasons I can't recall and kept it with all our gear in our rental car. However, it needed to go back onto the plane. So I show up, stand in line at security holding my axe. I get to the front and I'm like, I need to take this to the plane. The look on the screener's face was priceless. I have to call my supervisor. So she calls her supervisor, and I can hear her on the phone. There's a guy that wants to take an axe through security. Long story short, I have a picture of an axe on the belt going through the x-ray. Did they think there was an even deadlier weapon inside the axe? And then they had to escort us out to the plane with our axe. Story 20. This is kind of on the opposite side of things, and I hate to be that person, but about a year/2 years or whatever ago, I was flying to New York for my cousin's wedding, and we were going through TSA pre-check. Everything went fine. My carry-on backpack went through no problem. Later, when I was getting ready for the wedding, I couldn't find my lipstick and started to dig around in my bag, only to find my 4-arm-length Damascus steel Jambia dagger, which I had put there a few weeks ago after getting it sharpened. Somehow, they missed a frickin' dagger. Before I get any comments about the pronunciation of that, I know you guys are already down there typing away. I don't know how it's said. Jambia? It's one of the two, right? But I'm sure you'll educate me in the comments anyway, so let me know. Story 21. Not exactly the question you asked, but related story. When I travel, sometimes for competitions, I usually bring a few Rubik's Cubes with me, which I could only imagine look very interesting on x-rays. Most of the ones I bring have 6 screws with springs leading into a metal core and magnets glued on the insides of some of the pieces. Imagine being a TSA worker and seeing on your screen a whole bunch of screws screwed together with random metal bits floating around. Just imagine what that would look like on the screen. It also doesn't help that I get nervous around TSA a lot. One time on my way to France, I noticed they were looking at the screen and pointing at it. Oh great, it's the cubes again. Of course, the agent picks up my bag and puts it on the table, and the first thing he pulls out is the 7x7x7 Rubik's Cube. I will never forget his face of shock and ridiculousness. He puts it back in and gives the bag back to me, laughing and saying, "You're good." Story 22. Obligatory, not a screener, but my aunt was at the TSA checkpoint and put her carry-on on one of the gray tubs to be scanned. What she did not realize was that a TSA agent had, for some reason, put down their two-way radio in the same bin. So the bag ends up going through the scanner at least twice. Everything gets taken out of it. The bag gets scanned empty on its own. Then someone thought to pick up the bag. That is obviously when they found the radio.